Jeff, rich background in business and technology, including an MBA and experience as Deloitte consultant and ex-chief product officer at a leading tech company. Jeff brings a wealth of knowledge and insight to the table. Currently, he is the founder of Nurture, a thriving business with over 30 employees. Nurture's mission is to empower real estate professionals in Ontario with the latest proven methods for business growth. So, Jeff, it's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last few weeks. Again, grateful for the introduction from Anthony. I'm going to pass it to you. I'm going to make you host so that you have the screen sharing capabilities. But again, thank you for joining us and sharing your information and your wisdom with us today. Grateful for you to be here.
So what I'm hoping to share today and what I promised Alfonso and Darby was just pure value, right? And before I get into it, just show of hands, how many people have actually worked with online leads before? Have tried it in the past? Okay, maybe half of you, I would say. So I'll start from the basics, but this information is relative to anyone, whether you haven't tried it or have tried it or thinking about trying it. There are a couple of key things that I want to go through. So let me share my screen. Can everyone see it okay? All right. So I'm actually going to show you the exact ads that we're using for some of our clients in Ontario to get leads for JAAG. And whether you want to run ads or not, the reason I'm showing you this is because we have a philosophy. All of our information is going to be made available for free. And we basically self-implementation because yes, we spend a lot of time, money, effort, learning, testing, doing all this stuff. But the principles are what I want to share with you. So I'll show you the exact ads. Then I want to show you how to actually turn online leads into appointments, because one of the things a lot of realtors do is they've been building an entire business, or mortgage agents. They build an entire business based on referrals. And they don't realize when they get into online leads, there's actually a different approach. You have to treat referrals versus online leads, because online leads don't know you, whereas referrals trust you to a certain extent already, right? So I'm going to show you how to actually close an online lead. And then I want to show you how to turn those meetings into dollars. So literally, I want to show you the step-by-step process of how we're doing this for people so that you can do it yourself, or at least have an understanding of how people are doing this. And this should help you in getting more clients for your rent-to-own book. Does that make sense? All right, so let's dive right into it. Yeah, I won't go too much about us. We kind of went through that already, but essentially super bare bones. We're getting cheap leads from Facebook, Instagram. We're booking appointments, and then we're relying on realtors and our team to turn those appointments into submitted deals to JAAG. Then after that, it's between JAAG and the realtor and mortgage agents to get the deal done. So how are we actually getting calendars booked full of appointments? It's the winning ads. So I'm going to show you the ads in a bit, but essentially every winning ad, if you are to run an ad on Facebook, Google, TikTok, LinkedIn, doesn't really matter. You always have to follow this formula. So the number one thing you have to do is you have to find your hook. What is it about JAAG's rent-to-own program that is appealing? And I only have a short amount of time, or else I would query everyone here. But essentially what we found out is the hook is not rent to own. The hook is you can get a place with poor credit. You can get a place with 3% down. You can get a place with 100K household income, right? That's a hook. So a lot of people make the mistake of advertising, hey, rent to own, rent to home, and no one knows what they're talking about. And even if they do, they don't understand it, right? So if you go with a strong hook, that's how you get people's attention. So yes, we have the hook, but now you have to get people's attention to stop scrolling. So how do you do that? You have to test all sorts of creative headlines. And then once you find that, you scale the winners. So when you run ads, you're testing probably about at least a dozen different variables at one time. You find the one that works and you put more money into that, you monitor it, and that's the process for winning ads, right? So I will literally show you exactly what I mean. Here's an ad. I'll show you the account. Here's an ad we're running. And what we're doing is we're using the exact hooks we talked about, right? Hey, lock in prices for 3% down. Hey, this new program lets you get in a home with 100K household income. And it's basically just getting their attention, right? You're trying to stop their scrolling with an image, and then you're selling them with the actual hooks and the text copy. So what you do after that is you get them to fill out their information. So you never want to talk to someone unless they're qualified, right? Because then it's a waste of both of your time. So one of the biggest mistakes people make with online leads or any sort of lead generation is not qualifying people ahead of time. And this will save you a whole lot of pain, time, and also their pain and time. So you just want to ask the questions to make sure that they have the bare minimum. And a pro tip is if you use Facebook, make sure you always ask them to manually write in their number. And the reason is because people created their Facebook account 10, 15 years ago, in some cases, and they changed their number. And if you have it autofilled, you're going to get the wrong phone number and you're going to call the wrong person. So this is one thing that we do is we'll pre-qualify them. And you probably won't have this, but we'll also get an assistant, an inside sales agent to call them to pre-qualify them again. And if you have a system or a person to do this, then you reduce the likelihood of you talking to someone that will never qualify. And that's not a good use of your time, right? So we talked about, all right, what ads will work? How do you pre-qualify them? Now, how do you actually get them into a meeting? So the last thing you want to do is let them know you're going to give them a call. If they know they're going to give a call, they're more likely to pick up. But this is where I really want to go into the major constraints that people have. It's this. So it's hard to see from my screen because I'm sharing my screen, but raise of hands, like who's heard the importance of following up with people in 5 minutes? Few of you. Who's heard the importance of, or who's heard the term, the money's in the follow-up? Yeah, few of you people have, right? I think these are very common heard terms, but I really want to highlight the actual extent in which they are true because people kind of understand, but I don't think they understand the depth of it. So I'm actually going to pull on this Harvard study and I'm going to blow this up a little bit. You probably can't see. So this Harvard study, they looked at over 100,000 call attempts. And this is not the only study. There's a study by MIT, there's multiple sales studies, and they all say the exact same thing. And this is probably the best graph I could find for you. This graph shows people that called leads within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes plus, right? So a lead is fresh when they just gave you the information. They just filled out their form, right? So if you're calling those people in 5 minutes versus just 10 minutes, and 10 minutes sounds very reasonable, right? The average person is like 10 minutes. That's amazing. But there's actually a 400% decrease in your chance of qualifying that lead if you get them in 10 minutes versus 5 minutes. So the rate at which leads get cold is extraordinarily fast. It's faster than 99% of people think it is, right? Now, the crazy thing is after 10 minutes, if you go to 30 minutes plus, look at the odds of qualifying them. It's nuts. And this MIT study will demonstrate it as well. They looked at pretty much the same thing, high ticket sales, which is what all of you do, whether you do mortgages or real estate, it's high ticket, right? The odds of qualifying a lead if called in 5 minutes versus 30 minutes drops 21 times. So the speed at which you get to someone is extraordinarily important. So the difference, if you just quantify this mathematically, if you're qualifying people at 21 times less than someone else, that's the difference between someone saying online leads are all garbage versus, wow, my business is blowing up because of online leads. That one single trait, right? So if you ever work with online leads, make sure you have a system or a person to help you do this because it's so important. The second thing that we're talking about is the 6 follow-up rule that we have. And the reason we follow up at least 6 times is because statistically you have to follow up at least 6 times. Now, if I were to ask most of the people here, just raise their hands, how many people actually follow up with their leads 6 times before they give up? Like pretty much nobody. And that's consistent. Don't feel bad. Everyone, almost everyone is like that, right? So the problem with that is, yes, that's normal, but it's not enough. So when you ask most realtors, mortgage agents, or anyone doing sales, about half of you will give up after 2 calls with the assumption that if they're interested, they'll get back to me. However, that sounds logical, but it's not true. And I know that's a hard thing to grasp, but it is statistically proven to not be true. If they're not interested, they may get back to you if you call them enough times, right? So this study is basically showing you that you should always make at least 6 attempts because that's how many attempts it takes for 90% of the time. Does that make sense? So if you're not doing these things, then online leads likely won't work for you. And I just want to be upfront. And you probably heard your buddies or your friends say like, yeah, online leads don't work, right? It's because of these 2 things. It's the speed to lead or the frequency of contact, those 2 things. So I will take some questions later, but I do want to get through all of the meat and bones. So in summary, we talked about how do you get leads? How do you get them into an appointment, right? Now that we understand those two fundamental things, we're going to move to the third thing, which is how do you actually turn a meeting with someone into dollars, into closed deals? And I think this is the part where most people fail because you can pay someone like myself or my team to get you appointments, but turning meetings into dollars is a skill, right? Um, so, there are people on this call that are even better suited to talk about this than myself, like Anthony, for example, and Alfonso, for example. But I want to go through some of the basic foundations of what we found to be helpful. So the reason I want to talk about this for a couple minutes is just because so many people treat an online lead like a referral, and that is a mistake that people intuitively don't understand. The difference is an online lead has no idea who you are yet. And just the fact that we are able to get you a meeting with them doesn't mean that they're sold at all. They're just agreeing to a meeting. So on the meeting, you have to build a personal connection with them. You have to add massive value up front. And if you are, for example, a mortgage agent with the mentality of like, I don't work until I get the documents, then don't do online leads, honestly. It's not going to work. You have to add massive value up front to build trust right away. So we found that typically people that have built a referral business, they tend not to do these things enough. So on your initial strategy call, for example, you're not building a rapport with them. You're not adding enough value. And after the call, you're not adding enough value to build enough trust that they want to do the deal. This third tip, I actually stole from Anthony. So Anthony, thanks for this. With JAAG's rent to own forms, there is an initial form that you can fill out with them. And I have various clients that have tried JAAG. The better successful ones are the people that literally will fill out the form on that first call with them. And it all goes back to adding massive value, right? Like if you send them a link and say, hey, here's the link, fill it out. And if you're interested, you'll get back to me. It's not going to work. If you sit on the phone with them and you add value, you educate them about the program, you understand their needs, see if it's a good fit, and then you fill in the form with them, then all of a sudden you've built enough trust to get to the next step. You have the form submitted, and then more importantly, you have JAG inside the network of the follow-up as well, right? So this three-step process is extremely important versus, all right, you got a meeting. Yeah, if you're interested, fill out the form, and if you're not, then you're not a good lead. That's a losing mentality. Does that make sense? Okay. So we talked about step one, getting leads, step two, getting appointments, step three, closing leads. And truthfully, step three is a little bit weak in this presentation because there's limited time, but someone like Anthony or Alfonso could probably speak more to that. This is probably the most important part. It's the Pareto principle. So I'm sure most of you have heard the 80-20 rule / Pareto principle, where 20% of your efforts are going to result in 80% of your dollars or closed deals, right? It's the exact same with online leads. So if you're focusing on every single lead the exact same, then you're not maximizing your potential. So there's kind of a system to working with leads, and there's 100 different ways you can do it. I just want to show you one simple way that we do it. And I'll show you this in our CRM, right? So this is a demo account. You don't have to use this exact system, but I want to show you the kind of outline. So as we get leads, as we're getting appointments for realtors, for mortgage agents, they're going to go into the realtor to follow up, right? Because we set you an appointment or you set yourself an appointment. And what a lot of people do is they don't distinguish the high value ones from the low value ones, right? They're following up with everyone equally. And therefore, they're not following up with the right people enough times because they're like, I have too many people to follow up with. I'm not going to follow up 6 times with all of them, which makes sense. So the best thing to do is focus on the high quality leads. And let's say someone like ghosting Gary, you call him a few times, he hasn't gotten back to you. What most people do is like, I'm going to give up. He's not interested. But what you can do is either get your assistant or preferably yourself, use an automation or someone else to help you to get another meeting, right? And that way you're focusing on the high quality leads. Or let's say Slow Susan, right? She's I'm not ready to do a deal until like 8 months later. So yeah, you don't need to call Slow Susan 6 times next week. Just throw Susan into your email drip campaign, into your text drip campaign, like add a note into your calendar to follow up with her every few months so that once Slow Susan's ready, she's thinking of you. So the biggest mistake people make is they're not nurturing their leads long term and they're losing out on future deals. If you just keep stacking long-term nurture deals, then they become current state deals in the future. So when you do this, when you have a system to get people to get back to you, when you have a system to nurture people, then all of a sudden it doesn't seem so overwhelming to contact your high quality leads 6 times if you need something, right? So that's what I mean by 80/20. You have to really dissect who are your high value clients, but without forgetting about these people, because a big portion of these people will become your high quality leads if you do the right things, if you contact them enough, if you always get a yes or no response, right? So that's why not everyone agrees with this, and you don't have to agree with this. A nicer way of saying this is always get a yes or no, but there's a philosophy, follow up until you get the thumbs up or the middle finger. And that is true for online leads. Always get a yes or no. Doesn't matter if it's a no, but if you don't follow up, it's 100% no's. You might as well get some yeses out of it. Now, use this sparingly. Do not use this with cold calls. Only use this with people that have opted in, that you've spoken to, that have asked for your help and want your help. Do not use this for strangers, because that is, borderline illegal. So that's basically, in a nutshell, as much content as I can pack in a short amount of time. If you do need help, you have my information. And if you need us to do this for you, we can do that for you. And if you know someone that needs this, we actually have a 20% commission bonus. So that's my 5-second pitch. I really want to leave time for questions. Does anyone have questions? And I'm going to stop sharing actually so I can see everyone.
I'll start one off with a question, Jeff, and just historically, what's more difficult? Is it the 5 minutes getting back to them quickly, or the multiple, like that 6 times? What is the more challenging to kind of actually implement?
5 minutes. The 5 minutes is extraordinarily hard, especially for professionals like everyone here, because you're doing showings, you're on the road, and you're doing deals, right? It's almost impossible to get to everyone in 5 minutes consistently, and that's why automations are so important. That's why an assistant is so important, because actually doing that, it's not a skill thing, it's a capacity thing a lot of times. Whereas the 6 follow-ups, that's more of a mindset slash disbelief thing, right? So everyone here hypothetically could follow up with their leads 6 times, right? Even if you have 100 leads, you can still do that every day. And I'm not saying everyone should do that for 100 leads, but you'll probably have a concise short list of people that you actually do need to follow up with, the high value ones, and everyone else you should let something or someone else deal with. But you need to get that 6 follow-ups, and that's not a hard thing. That's just people don't believe they have to, so they don't do it.
Well, and on that note, I jotted down while you were saying that is utilizing JAAG and our resources as maybe a few of those follow-ups as well, right? Because we're going to be doing our follow-up once they get into our channels. So it could be 3 and 3, it could be 4 and 2, whatever that is, but to get to that 6. So the definitely the 5 minute. Okay. So yeah, let's open it up for some more questions, guys. We have Jeff here for a little bit, and yeah, let's utilize a great resource for any terms of questions. Yeah, Deirdre, go ahead.
Yeah, I've signed up with another, I guess, lead generation marketing company, and currently they're running TikTok ads for me. I'm getting many leads. They're not qualified, so I don't know if they're good or not. And often I'm getting those in the middle of the night. So yeah, 5 minute rule can't apply for me in that case, right? So what would you suggest?
Yeah, so it depends how they're doing it. So we used to be a company like that where we just sent people leads, and we realized it didn't work because of the biggest constraints to leads, right? So we used to send people leads and say, all right, why are a lot of people failing? And that's why we had to implement different systems and people in place. So there are kind of two options for you. One is automations, and the other is more difficult, but you can hire a virtual assistant to help you out, or someone locally, but that's expensive, right? So what we would do is we would send them an automated text as soon as they fill out their information, just to verify, like, yeah, we got your information. And then a follow-up text right away saying, hey, we're going to give you a contact, or we're going to call you as soon as business hours start, right? And then at least they know to expect a call from you. And even though that's not getting to them in 5 minutes, it's good enough because at least they know that you're on it. Like, all right, that's fair enough. It's 4 a.m. He's not awake, but I know he's going to give me a call. So that's what truthfully we do with our ISAs, inside sales agents, because people don't want to get a phone call at 4 a.m.
Thank you. Maybe I'll reach out to you afterwards.
Yeah, I can help you out if you have any system issues. Like we do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hey, Darby's got a question.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious in terms of your leads and how many you operate. You're mentioning like a lot of texting. So what's the ratio in terms of texting, phone call, email?
Mhm. Yeah, so in order of like worst, email is by far the worst because most people don't even check their emails, and there's different settings that people can have to block certain emails as well. So the open rate for a text message is about 9 times better than email. So text is always better than email every single time. So if you can get someone's phone number, that is significantly better than an email. Phone call is best because then you can have a full conversation and therefore convert them into an appointment a lot easier than text. So an example would be if you're trying to get an appointment, you do want to pre-qualify them. So in order to pre-qualify for JAAG, as an example, there's a few questions you want to ask, like, oh, do you have 3% down? Do you have 100K income? And doing that over text could take a long time if they're busy. Whereas doing it over a phone call, it's one phone call, let me book you in, good to go. So we use a mix of mostly text and phone calls. And one of the, I guess, tips for people that are dealing with leads is every time you make a phone call, do what's called a double dial, and then follow that up with a text message. So a double dial is basically phone call and then phone call again. The reason is because like who here gets random phone calls all the time? And who here ignores like 100% of them? It's like every time. So the reason we do double dial and text is because these people have opted in, right? They want help. You know they need help. So we call them again, and we send them a text message. And the text message says like, hey, I'm here to help you. This is in regards to that thing that you filled out. So at least if they're ignoring your phone call, they know they're ignoring you for this reason, right? So we always do double dial and text, and then we also double dial and text them again at a later time in case they're busy. So a lot of phone calls, a lot of text, not so many emails.
No, that's great. Thank you. I do have another question, and this might be more on the marketing side of things. You say when you do your ads, you kind of run testing of things, right? So is that A/B testing within Meta that you're operating? How many ads do you run at the same time?
Yeah, so the answer is basically as many as we need to. When you're running ads, the priority of changes is always image first. That's the most important because that's how you stop them from scrolling. Now, image then leads them to reading the headline. So the headline is the second most important. And then third most important is text copy. So when we run a new ad, we'll at least test a few different images. We might test a couple different headlines. And honestly, the text is not that important, but we'll test a couple of texts. So if something's not working, you can actually see inside Facebook and Google, there's different metrics that they'll show you. So if you're looking at click-through rate, that is a good indicator of, are they stopping to click what you have, right? So if the click-through rate is low, probably means your image is not attention grabbing, right? If they click it and then they don't fill out the form, maybe your form is too long. You ask too many questions, right? So it's kind of a balance between like how many questions you want to ask to pre-qual and how much are you willing to pay for a lead? Because the more you ask, the costlier the lead is, right? So our approach has always been minimal questions on the form, but enough to just qualify them. So for JAAG, it's just 3 questions: phone number, 3%, 100K. That's all. That's it.
No, perfect. Thank you, Jeff.
That's great. This is yeah, very valuable information, and hope that some of you guys can maybe start implementing or start utilizing some of the stuff that learned today right away. So